We bought a 5-axis machine with a pallet pool, of which the state of Indiana paid for half of the machine. So $170K in cash for a machine, that makes growing easier.
Have you ever wondered how a manufacturing business can grow over 1,000% in just a few years? Well, today you're going to find out. Let's go take a look.
My name is Goode. I am the president and co-owner of MSP Manufacturing. Our business is mostly aerospace and defense. However, we do dabble in the firearms, medical, and now space, and then just some basic contract manufacturing. Things that separate us from other manufacturing companies are that we do have our own core products. Basically, we make parts that go in the cockpit of pretty much every commercial plane in the air. So
wow.
If you've been on a Boeing, Airbus, Bombardier, Gulfstream, any of those planes, they all have at least one of our part numbers on there, or we manufacture their part numbers as well.
But what part is that?
So we make avionic air ducts that sit in between the co-pilot and pilot, and then case assemblies that hold the instruments in there, and then switch guards. So if you ever seen a fighter in a movie where the fighter jet opens up the switch to fire, we make about 90 different variants of those.
MSP has such a cool company history background. You want to share a little bit more from the beginning?
Yep, 1943, MSP stands for Marion Screw Products. It was founded in Marion, Indiana by the Pritchard family. It grew a little bit, and then my dad purchased it in 2002. Maybe 4 to 5 employees, 1 or 2 machines.
Wow.
And then after that, my dad bought a series of product lines. So a product line in the aviation basically gives you exclusivity. It's better than a patent. So we bought multiple product lines, which is where we saw so much growth, and I grew the revenue by 1,000%, quadrupled the workforce, added way more machines in here. And so 2019 was, prior to 2024, was their best revenue year. And my dad's like, okay, maybe now is the time we start getting interested buyers in. And at that time, you don't really want to be innovative. You don't want to invest in capital equipment. You want to make your EBITDA look as best as it can. That changed when I kind of told my dad I'm in it for the long haul. I want to get us to that 100-year mark. So I still got 17 more years to hit, but
you got it.
I got it, and I got a little one that can help me when he's a little bit older too. So yeah.
How do you go from 1,000% growth to 10,000% growth like I know you plan on doing?
First is right people, right seats. So that's what I've spent the last couple of years doing, and I think I have that. The other one is equipment. Now, equipment, training, and then you got to bring in new customers. So with our equipment, financing is great, but where we've really maximized is our grants. And that's where I talked about having a great network. What happened to me is people were like, knew my dad, great relationship, saw me coming in, they're like, hey, have you looked into these grants? And I'd never written grants before, but I did one that was kind of pretty easy to write. And we got a quick return on it. I mean, money in our account within like a couple weeks. So I did that. And then we invested in equipment, people, training. That's where we pivoted. It's hard to imagine where you're going to be in 20 years and the expense like 10,000% growth, which is I think where we're heading. But that's what's cool too. And you see like examples of multi-generation companies, like an owner will hit like almost their own ceiling, and then someone comes in and like busts through that ceiling. And that's kind of what happened 2 years ago. We had a record revenue year. This year we're pretty much in line with that record revenue year, and then next year is even higher than our previous record. So we're keep hitting these barriers that we originally had, and then continuing to be innovative.
The grants and financing have been a huge part of your growth. Would it be even possible if you weren't able to take advantage of that?
No, I mean, you take both away, absolutely not. Without that, we'd be running 3-axis parts, and I think our business, instead of growing, would be declining drastically. The SBA and ISBDC, the Indiana Economic Development, I mean, they want us to take advantage of it, but what they don't want is to send you emails and nothing ever happens. So when they saw me starting to apply for these, they just kept flooding my inbox with opportunities, and then I didn't miss one. We bought a 5-axis machine with a pallet pool, of which the state of Indiana paid for half of the machine.
Wow.
So $170K in cash for a machine, that makes growing easier. I think we financed our payment was about $2,500 a month. If I can't grow my net income to be more than $2,500 extra a month with a 5-axis pallet pool, I think we had bigger issues to worry about. And that's where I've looked at, there's a cost of doing purchases, but there's a cost of not doing them too. And sometimes that cost is way more, but people are accustomed to it because they've been paying it and they can't comprehend that Well, I'm just throwing money in a money pit because they've always done it that way. And that's where my SWAT commander gave me great advice once. He said, don't confuse good luck with good tactics. And that's what I always say to people when they say, well, we've always done it this way. And I was like, well, next time you say that, I hope your resignation letter is behind it, because we need to be innovative and I'm going to change things.
That's awesome. Johnny, tell me a little bit about your military background. I see that you have implemented a lot of your skills, life lessons you learned there with your core values here at MSP.
Yeah, so right before I shipped off to basic training, I made SWAT and made detective. So I had to balance all those three things, but you know, resiliency, integrity, teamwork, all of those just make the basis of a team. So when I think of like great teams, I think we have an incredible one here, but my business model was not another business, it was my SWAT team. I learned there, like, we were all striving to be the best, always be improving, not look at your other person as competition, but like you're using them to better yourself and they're using that. So resiliency and teamwork, like if you have that down, manufacturing is easier.
Many smaller manufacturing businesses, I'm sure, watch and take advice from the master here. Are there any mistakes maybe 5 years ago or throughout this way that you, Johnny, could look back and say you could have avoided now knowing?
I mean, I think the only thing I'm a master of is failing early. So that's one thing too, is you have to be able to look at failure as not a bad thing. But another huge component that has really made me more successful, made me more seen on LinkedIn is working outside of your business. So as small businesses, as owners, you get so ingrained in tunnel vision on your operations. Where I've found a unique opportunity is my background is very different than other shops.
Right.
So I usually just start with that over a cocktail hour, and then they're way more open to they want to hear more, you know, stuff I did undercover. And then like the idea of new business coming in, it becomes more of a friend talking to a friend rather than a guy pitching a thing that he doesn't want.
Which is where the trust comes in.
Yes, all my customers have my cell phone number. There are definitely times I regret that, but they can call me and know, like, if my customer service team doesn't give them the answer they want, they can come to me and we can see if we can do better. That's where I think it's easier to grow with customers. You got to execute on what you're promising, and
you are an executor, for sure. So you mentioned relationships and networking, and we met through a mutual friend.
Someone referred me to that mutual friend who referred me to you, and then you were so responsive, which is really nice, because usually when you're working with finance companies, it's like going through a mortgage, but I liked how simple you make it. What I really like what you guys do is you don't start making payments until like either the machine's delivered or multiple months afterwards. Whereas if you go to a bank, it's really hard for them to come into that idea where it's like, you want to get a loan, we got to pay for it, but you want to wait until it's delivered to start. Like, no traditional bank's going to do that. And the one-page application that we filled out both times was so simple. That's where I think being an established business is easier than one that I start tomorrow. But it's just been a very easy, pleasurable experience, and then you get things done super quick.
So I think one of the things about manufacturing that we all love is the Made in America factor.
Yes.
So tell me, why is it so important for manufacturing of parts or products to be done here in America?
Well, as an American, as someone that, you know, trained to at least fight for America, our customer is the Department of Defense on a lot of our applications. And I want to make a rigid source where if another country goes down because of geopolitical issues, you know, tax, economy or stuff, our soldiers aren't waiting for that. We can source our people, our material, our equipment, everything stateside. And that's where we can just be a more reliable source. And we've even had customers in the aerospace side, they're like, you guys, you know, you can get this cheaper overseas. And I was like, I'll pay more to do good business with good people. I don't buy anything from overseas. There's been one exception, of which there was one German supplier that had an exclusivity on one screw, and I had to buy it from them. But other than that, American made, because our customer is a warfighter and they deserve the best.
That's awesome. So there you have it, another successful manufacturing business. For more content like this, check out our other videos.